And it's an amazing privilege to serve at that level. It's like any of these roles, it takes time, it takes effort, but I found it to be immensely rewarding, and I learn every single day. And my coming to District 50 is part of my duties in that role on the board, is to come and support our district leaders on the ground and to learn from you what's important to you and to give you thanks and encouragement and hopefully some inspiration as well.
Welcome to another episode of D50 After Dark. I'm your host, Mickey Bennett, and in today's episode, which I'm very excited about, we will be interviewing the first Vice President of Toastmasters International, Aletta Rochat. You will not want to miss this episode. First, a word from our sponsors. We have two amazing sponsors for today's episode. The first is Habitat Commons. Habitat Commons is a beautiful co-working space providing an invigorating work environment for creative and other professionals. It's conveniently located near Highway 75 in the President George Bush Tollway in Plano, Texas. To learn more, visit habitatcommons.com. We are also brought to you by Moon Vision Productions. Moon Vision Productions is a full-service photography and video production company that services small businesses and individuals, taking your content to the next level. Follow them on Instagram at moonvision_productions. Now, let's meet our exciting guest today. Today's guest, as I said earlier, is the first Vice President of Toastmasters International, Aletta Rochat. Welcome to the show, Aletta.
Thank you, Mickey. I'm delighted to be with you.
Yes, well, I've been looking forward to this interview for a while now. I would say your average Toastmaster isn't really present to the higher levels of leadership in Toastmasters International, right? They know their club officers, they maybe know some of their district leadership, but you're operating at an international level of Toastmasters. So let's start by, in a minute, I want to hear about what a first vice president is and does. But first, I just want to get to know you, a little bit about you and your backstory. So tell us how long you've been in Toastmasters and how did you get started?
Well, it's an interesting story, Mickey. I could never have predicted where this journey would take me. I joined in 2008, and the real reason I joined was I joke that I was running away from my children. I was looking for something that had nothing to do with being a wife or being a mother to three beautiful children, and I'd heard the name Toastmasters, but I'd never even met a Toastmaster. So one day I decided, let me just go and see what I can find. I Googled Toastmasters and two clubs came up that were relatively close to me, and I picked one. And I was so fortunate because the club I chose was one of the strongest clubs in the district. There were two past district governors in my club. So little did I know that I'd stumbled upon a really strong club. And I'd always been relatively confident speaking. That had never been an issue for me. But what impressed me so much at that first meeting was I could learn. And the people who spoke that evening, I thought, were so articulate, so professional, so funny. They just had so many skills that I wanted to acquire. And I immediately knew that I was going to join because I wanted to become like they were. I wanted to have that proficiency in front of an audience. And I've never looked back. I'm still a member of Cape Town Toastmasters, and I still learn every time I go to a meeting.
16 years later.
Yeah.
Very cool. And I'm assuming you're a distinguished Toastmaster.
I am.
You've probably completed the DTM program several times?
No, I haven't, funny enough. I completed it once and I'm almost through my second one, but I've done many iterations. Before we changed to pathways, I did many competent communicator manuals or competent leadership manuals to help my club get goals on the Distinguished Club program. But I follow the path not for the sake of following it, but because it's meaningful. So I'm excited to be soon to be completing my Pathways DTM, but I haven't had an overburdening desire to do it again and again. And I admire the people that do, but it's not been the choice I've made.
Yeah, yeah. In some people's mind, the largest component of completing a DTM is the year of district service. And I'm sure you've probably done club growth director, program quality director, district director, and several other roles that qualify for district service.
Yeah, I have. And sometimes the most difficult requirement to meet is that of being a club mentor or sponsor or coach. So depending on the district you're in and how many new clubs they start or how many clubs qualify for coaches, that could also be a challenge. But if you stay connected to your district leadership, I'm sure there are opportunities to meet those requirements.
Yeah. Now, you are speaking to us from South Africa, correct?
I live in Cape Town, South Africa, yes.
Cape Town. So the vast majority of our members are in the U.S., probably in Texas, or our listeners are in the U.S., probably in Texas, and I would venture that most of them have never been to South Africa. What's something about South Africa that your average Texan might not know about?
Well, I think if you just think of the wildlife we have, you can come here and go on safari and see what we call the big five, lions and elephants and buffaloes and cheetahs and leopards. And that is available relatively easily within the country. We also have incredible natural beauty and we make beautiful wines. So there's so much to see and do here in a relatively small geography. I mean, I know Texas is huge, but in South Africa, the furthest flight within South Africa is probably 2 hours, and then you would be able to see a whole new part of the country.
Very cool. And I notice your lovely shirt has little elephants on it.
Yeah.
Very, very.
Yeah, this shirt actually, funny enough, I bought it in the US, but it always reminds me of Thailand because they always feature elephants everywhere. But it's one of my favorite shirts, and I always feel good wearing it. And I love elephants. What's not to like?
Yeah, they're great. All right. Well, you are the first vice president of Toastmasters International. And so a lot of people listening may not know how the leadership is structured at that level of Toastmasters International. So I assume there's, by the title first vice president, there's a second vice president?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So once you have your district leadership, and you mentioned some of the top three in each district, the club growth director, the program quality director, and the district director, and they run operations within the district, and they are key to our success globally, absolutely. If you have completed those roles and you wish to serve in other roles that are beyond the district, you have some options. You can apply to be a region advisor. And a region advisor works with the trio and the public relations manager in each district. And they are assigned, depending on the size of the region, between 4 and at most probably about 7 districts to work with. And that is a 15-month term. I was very fortunate to serve in that capacity for 2 years, and I learned so much. And in my case, I'm from Region 11, which at the time was Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And since then, that region has split, and Africa is now its own region with parts of the Middle East, and Europe is also a separate region. The other alternative, if you wish to serve internationally, is to run for election to the board of directors. And we have 14 regions within the world, and each one of those regions has one representative on the board of directors, and that's a 2-year term. So it's an exciting opportunity and that's a far more strategic role. The region advisor is more operational in nature. And on the board of directors, you are overseeing the operations of world headquarters through the CEO, and you are responsible for setting the strategic direction of the organization. We also have fiduciary duties, make sure the money is spent and managed well. And it's a very enriching role, like any of our leadership roles. As I said, it's a 2-year term, and you are selected from a region, but you represent the leaders of the organization and our members globally. So you have to develop a global mindset and consider the same issue from all parts of the world to see if you can make decisions that serve all our members optimally. And then above the board of directors, there's an executive committee, and that consists of the second vice president, the first vice president, the president-elect, the international president, and the immediate past international president. And that team, together with the CEO, help set the strategic direction. They sit on the strategic planning committee, and they help guide the board of directors and bring proposals to the board of directors for approval. And that is a 5-year journey from second VP all the way through. And it's an amazing privilege to serve at that level. It's like any of these roles, it takes time, it takes effort, but I found it to be immensely rewarding, and I learn every single day. And my coming to District 50 is part of my duties in that role on the board, is to come and support our district leaders on the ground and to learn from you what's important to you and to give you thanks and encouragement and hopefully some inspiration as well.
Very cool. That is possibly the best explanation of the upper levels of Toastmasters leadership that I've ever heard. Now, in comparing those leadership roles to the district roles, when you decide to be one of the big three, the general expectation is you run for club growth director, and then the following year you'll be program quality director and then district director. That's the expectation and how it usually works, at least in our district. However, you do have to run to be elected to each role each time. With the second vice president, first vice president, and so on, do you run for each role, or once you're second vice president, are you just on the ride till the end?
Well, you have feel big to run for election as second vice president. It's a lot of work and you have to be really committed. Once you're elected, the following year, you are still a candidate, and you may not have anyone running against you, but you still go through the International Leadership Committee and work hard to make sure that they nominate you. I would not like to be in that position not having their support. And then when you run for president-elect, which I'm doing this year, I had my very final interview with the International Leadership Committee, and I'm hoping to be elected in August at the convention. And then the president-elect doesn't have to run anymore. They are presumed that they will just go forward to the international president. So the next time I encounter the International Leadership Committee, I will be on one of the chairs of one of the subcommittees interviewing candidates. So I'm looking forward to that experience.
Yeah, so assuming everything goes as planned, next Toastmasters year starting in July, no, you're running for election in August. So you'll be, these are two-year terms?
I'll be, in this August, I hope to be elected as the international president-elect. And then the following year, I would move up into the international president position.
Yeah, and so your term would start when?
For which role?
For president-elect.
Oh, okay. It starts straight after the business meeting at the convention, so in August.
I see. I see. It's 3 months displaced from the normal Toastmasters year that we at this level always think of. Okay, so then you'll be the president-elect, and then the following year, so in August 2025, you would take charge as the international president. So that leads very cool. So that leads perfectly into the next questions I wanted to ask you. Given that you are presumably like the future international president of Toastmasters International, I wanted to get your thoughts on how you see the future of Toastmasters as an organization, as an institution. We're going to talk a little in our next episode about the 100-year anniversary, but before we talk about that, I want to get your thoughts on where Toastmasters is going and what your vision is as such a critical leader of our organization.
I think that we are an incredibly important organization. The one thing that we do that fascinates me is we build bridges of understanding between people. And that's one of the things I love about Toastmasters, whether it's in my club, listening to speeches from people who have a very different background to me. to attending convention and meeting people from all over the world, but we have that one common thread and that one common desire, and that is to develop our speaking and leadership skills. And that is more relevant today in this age of technology than even ever before, I believe, because people communicate more than ever before, but that doesn't really mean that they talk to one another, and it possibly doesn't necessarily mean that they make sense to one another. So one of the most important skills that businesses are looking for are soft skills, the communication and the leadership. And that's where I think we really excel as an organization. So for me to look forward to the future, it would be an envisioned future for us where we are relevant, we are thriving, in other words, growing globally, and where we have the technology to support our members and our leaders so that they can do what we do in an easy, sophisticated manner. So I believe we're more relevant than we've ever been, but to continue to be relevant, we have to continue telling our human stories, why you joined, how you've benefited, why I joined, how I've benefited, because there are so many more people out there who've never heard of Toastmasters. And I consider it one of the most enriching things I've ever done in my life is to become a Toastmaster. And it continues to deliver an enriching experience for me every day. And I'd love to have that available to more people so that they can become more confident and more communicative. And in the process, inevitably, they take that confidence and that new skill and that new ability back to their families, to their communities, to their countries, to their careers. So the ripple effect of becoming a Toastmaster is astounding to me. And my vision is that that experience gets multiplied again and again all over the world so that we can enrich many lives through what we offer.
Yeah, that is really good. When I joined Toastmasters, what really kind of made my mind that I needed to work on these skills and get the benefits of Toastmasters, I read that even very technical careers like engineers, computer programmers, and the like, even those people spend a majority of their time communicating with other people about their work rather than in the weeds doing the technical work itself. And that just really clicked for me. I was like, yeah, that's so true. I need these communication skills.
Mm-hmm. And think about it, Mickey, in any company, you very seldom work alone. You always work in a team or part of a department, and that team communication can make or break the productivity of that team. And for companies to have excellent communicators, confident, clear communicators, and people with leadership skills inevitably will lead to a higher productivity, higher morale, higher efficiencies. And those are critical things for any company, irrespective of where you are based or what you do. So we contribute at a significant level to those skills. And in the process, we make companies more profitable and more a better place to work at, which is something, if people can stay at their jobs longer and be happy, companies benefit. So to me, there's no downside to being a Toastmaster and having that expertise within a company.
Yeah. Now, in your describing what you saw for the future of Toastmasters, you mentioned technology. And already in my 12 years of being a Toastmaster, I've seen two major changes in the way we use technology to deliver our programs. One is when we went from entirely paper manuals to pathways with its computer-based training and videos and all of the tools we have. So that was a big shift towards a higher integration of technology. And then during COVID era, many clubs used Zoom and similar technologies to stay active when people weren't meeting in person. So that, and even now in the post-COVID timeframe, a lot of clubs have still continued to use video conferencing technology for their meetings. Mm-hmm. Do you see technology making further changes to the way we participate in Toastmasters?
I do, Mickey. To me, technology keeps on advancing at a rapid rate. And what I've noticed in my own life is as soon as a big technology breakthrough happens, that becomes a norm very quickly. So let me give you an example. When Uber was launched, from the first moment, I appreciated how easy it was to use the Uber app to get a car to take me somewhere. Almost in a nanosecond, I expected every other cab company to have the same technology because my expectations had just skyrocketed very quickly. And when we see something in Google, we see something on Facebook, whatever it is, almost without us even realizing, we have that expectation of Toastmasters. We want it to be as slick, as sophisticated, as convenient, as adaptable as many other big platforms. Of course, we are a relatively small organization compared to those giants out there. But we have to try and deliver technology, number one, to make it easier to run our organization. Number two, to make it easier for our members to engage in our educational content through pathways. And number three, for our district leaders to get the job done. So I think it's almost like an insatiable wave that keeps on advancing, and we have to try and keep up. That means we have to invest more money over time in technology, which we've done since 2016. I think if my numbers are correct, in 2016, we spent, I think, about 12% of our revenue on IT, but now it's almost 50% more. So over time, as our needs have increased, we've invested more time and energy and invested in human capital to run that for us. And I don't see that trend slowing down. So it becomes a key part of what we do and a key part of how we deliver value to our members and our leaders. So we have to invest in it, and we have to keep on updating our systems as the world changes.
Very cool. I totally agree. Yes, it's very important. We got to stay relevant. We're going to wrap up this episode here in a moment. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know about you before we wrap up and move to the next episode?
Mickey, I think the important thing is to remember that whether I'm the international president, the first vice president, or any other role in this organization, I'm first and foremost a member. I go to club meetings just like everybody else. I get value from my club just like everybody else. And that is where the magic happens. The board may set strategic direction for the organization, but that strategy is expressed in our club meetings and expressed in how our members engage with our programs and how they make progress and whether or not they renew. So first and foremost, I'm a member just like any other member. And as our past international president, Pat Johnson, once said to me when I first met her, she said, I get exactly the same salary as you. There are a lot of zeros on my paycheck, but I'm here to serve Toastmasters just like you are.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love that. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. For our listeners, we are going to have another episode with Aletta, and in that episode, we're going to talk about your opportunity to meet Aletta in person in the very near future. So you definitely don't want to miss that episode of D50 After Dark. See you then.